The medical bay smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Oliver Reed wiped down the examination table for the third time that hour, his hands moving in careful circles even though the surface was already spotless. Around him, the quiet hum of diagnostic equipment filled the silence. He preferred it this way. Quiet meant no emergencies. No emergencies meant he wouldn't freeze up again. "Reed, you planning to scrub that table down to bare metal?" Dr. Yuri called from across the bay. The Centauri physician had 4 arms and used all of them while organizing supply cabinets. His blue skin caught the overhead lights as he moved. Oliver managed a weak smile. "Just being thorough. You're always thorough. Sometimes too thorough." Yuri's voice was gentle but pointed. "Your mother would want you to actually practice medicine, not just clean the tools." The mention of his mother sent a familiar ache through Oliver's chest. 3 years gone, and the wound felt fresh every single day. Dr. Patricia Reed had been a legend on Redstone Station. During the pirate raid, she'd pulled 17 people from the burning residential sector before the ceiling collapsed. Oliver had been number 18. She'd shoved him through a doorway and smiled at him one last time before the fire took her. He'd been frozen in fear, unable to move, unable to help. "Just like always." "I know," Oliver said quietly, focusing on his cleaning. The emergency broadcast crackled to life overhead. "This is operations. We're picking up a distress beacon from the scorched wastes. Unknown origin. Heat signatures are off the charts." Oliver's supervisor, a gruff human named Bradley, walked into the bay carrying a data pad. "Forget it. Nothing survives in the wastes. Probably just equipment failure. Sir, the signature is biological." The operations officer's voice carried concern. "Something big crashed out there. Then something big is about to die out there," Bradley said flatly. "We're not risking people for salvage in that hellhole. The temperature alone would kill anyone in minutes, even with heat suits." Oliver stopped cleaning. His medical training kicked in automatically, analyzing the scattered information. Biological signature meant living tissue. Distress beacon meant conscious thought. Crash meant trauma. Time meant everything. "Can you isolate the vital signs?" Oliver asked, surprising himself by speaking up. Bradley looked at him with raised eyebrows. "Since when do you care about field work, Reed? You barely handle the med bay." The words stung because they were true. Oliver had failed every simulation involving emergency response. His anxiety turned his hands to stone whenever pressure mounted. But something about this felt different. Maybe it was the desperation in the operations officer's tone. Maybe it was his mother's voice in his head, the one that never quite went away. "Just curious," Oliver muttered. Bradley shrugged and tapped his data pad. "Operations, send the vital data to Med Bay." The holographic display flickered to life above the main console. Oliver studied the readings with growing alarm. Respiratory distress. Massive blood loss. Core temperature dropping despite being in an environment hot enough to melt steel. Whatever was out there had maybe 4 hours left. Probably less. "It's dying," Oliver said softly. "It's already dead," Bradley corrected. "Just doesn't know it yet. Now get back to work. We got an inspection tomorrow, and everything needs to be perfect." The operations channel went quiet. The moment passed. Oliver returned to his cleaning, but his mind wouldn't let go. For hours. The creature had 4 hours, and no one cared. It was just another beast in a dangerous place. Not worth the risk. Not worth the effort. His mother had died, saving people no one thought could be saved. She'd run in a fire while others ran away. Oliver had always believed that made her special, different, braver than normal humans. But lately, he'd started wondering if maybe she'd just been doing what needed to be done. What someone had to do. That night, Oliver couldn't sleep. He lay in his small quarters, staring at the ceiling, thinking about vital signs and dropping temperatures. Thinking about his mother's last smile. Thinking about all the times he'd been too afraid to ACT T0 200 hours. He made a decision that terrified him. The equipment locker wasn't locked. Security on Redstone Station was relaxed, focused on external threats rather than internal theft. Oliver gathered a heat suit rated for volcanic environments, emergency medical supplies, plasma cutters for debris removal, and 3 days' worth of water. His hands shook as he loaded everything into a cargo bag. The motor pool had 6 transport rovers. He took the oldest one, hoping no one would notice it missing until morning. The vehicle rumbled to life with a cough of exhaust. Oliver's heart hammered against his ribs. This was crazy. This was suicide. This was the stupidest thing he'd ever done. He drove it anyway. The station's outer gate opened automatically for outgoing traffic. No alarm sounded. No one stopped him. Within minutes, Redstone Station was glowing behind him, and ahead lay nothing but darkness and the faint red glow of volcanic activity on the horizon. Oliver gripped the steering controls so hard his knuckles went white. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back. He was going to die out here. No one would even know why he'd gone. They'd think he'd panicked, run away, lost his mind. But somewhere in the scorched wastes, something was dying alone. And Oliver Reed, son of a hero, chronic coward, anxious wreck of a medical assistant, was the only person in the universe who seemed to care. His mother's words echoed in his memory. Fear is just your body preparing you to do what's necessary. Oliver drove faster into the dark. Heat shimmer made the landscape dance like water. Oliver had been driving for 2 hours through terrain that looked more like another planet than anywhere humans should be. Black volcanic rocks stretched in every direction, broken by rivers of orange magma that glowed bright enough to hurt his eyes. Toxic gas vents erupted without warning, spewing yellow clouds that would dissolve lung tissue in seconds. The rover's external temperature gauge read 312 degrees. Inside the heat suit, sweat poured down Oliver's face. The cooling system struggled to keep pace. His hands ached from gripping the controls, and his head pounded from stress and dehydration. Twice he'd nearly driven into sinkholes hidden beneath ash drifts. Once, a geyser of superheated steam had erupted directly in front of him, forcing a desperate swerve that almost tipped the rover. He was going to die out here. That thought kept circling his brain like a vulture. Not might die. Going to die. This was exactly the kind of reckless stupidity that got people killed. His mother had been brave. Oliver was just an idiot with anxiety who couldn't leave well enough alone. The distress beacon grew stronger. Oliver checked his scanner. Another kilometer ahead, maybe less. The vital signs he'd memorized back at the station were weaker now. Breathing had become irregular. Core temperature had dropped another 3 degrees. Time was running out faster than he'd calculated. The crater appeared suddenly, a massive wound in the landscape. Something had hit the ground hard enough to carve out a depression the size of a city block. Debris scattered everywhere, twisted metal glowing red from residual heat. At the center lay wreckage that might have been a ship once, now broken into fragments. And beneath the largest piece, something moved. Oliver stopped the rover and climbed out, immediately staggering as the heat hit him like a physical blow. Even through the suit, even with the cooling system running full blast, the temperature was unbearable. He forced himself forward, medical bag in hand, scanning the wreckage for the source of the vital signs. Then he saw her. The creature was enormous, easily 50 meters from nose to tail. Scales covered her body in overlapping patterns of deep crimson and black, each one the size of Oliver's torso. Her legs ended in claws that could tear through starship hulls. Wings lay crumpled and torn, one bent at an angle that made Oliver wince. Her head was massive, reptilian, with horns that curved back like a crowned out a dragon. An actual, real, impossible dragon. Blood pooled beneath her, dark and thick. Her breathing came in labored gasps that sent small puffs of ash swirling. One eye opened as Oliver approached, vertical pupil focusing on him with startling intelligence. The eye was gold, bright as a star, and held more awareness than any animal should possess. A voice entered Oliver's mind, not through his ears but directly into his thoughts. It was female, ancient, exhausted. Go back, small one. This place will kill you. Oliver stopped, his fear spiking into full panic. Telepathy. The creature was telepathic. He'd read about species with mental abilities, but experiencing it was different. It felt like someone had reached inside his skull. You're hurt, Oliver said aloud, his voice shaking. I'm a medic. I can help. I am dying. The mental voice held certainty. No medicine can save me now. The hunter's poison is in my blood. Save yourself. Oliver's medical training overrode his terror. He moved closer, scanning the wounds with equipment from his bag. The mental contact gave him flashes of information. This was Ashenclaw, last of the Dravok. Her species had been hunted to extinction over centuries. She'd been fleeing when her ship failed, when the poison finally overwhelmed her systems. The wound in her chest was horrific. Something had punched through her scales, deep into the tissue beneath. Dark veins spread from the injury, the poison working through her cardiovascular system. Oliver's scanner identified it as a synthetic toxin, designed specifically to break down Dravok cellular structure. This is bad, Oliver whispered. This is really, really bad. I told you. Go. Despite the words, Ashenclaw made no move to hurt him. She simply watched with that golden eye, waiting for him to flee like any sensible creature would. Oliver thought about his mother, about the moment she'd push him to safety and chosen to stay behind. He'd always wondered if she'd been afraid in that final moment, if she'd wanted to run but force herself to stay. Now, standing in front of an impossible creature in an impossible situation, he understood. Of course she'd been afraid. Fear was the price of doing what mattered. I can't leave, Oliver said simply. He opened his medical bag and got to work. The wound was deep, but he'd treated worse. The poison was the real problem. It was spreading, shutting down organs, destroying tissue. Oliver had countertoxins in his kit, broad-spectrum formulas meant for a dozen different species. Maybe one would work. Maybe none would. He had to try. There is something else. Ashenclaw's voice entered his mind again, weaker now. In the ship wreckage. My egg, hidden in the cargo bay. It survived the crash. Oliver's hands paused. You have a child? I had hoped to reach the sanctuary worlds, to give her a chance. A wave of grief came through the mental link, so powerful it brought tears to Oliver's eyes. Now she will die alone. The egg cannot survive without me. Then I'll make sure you survive. Oliver's voice was firm despite his shaking hands. Both of you. He injected the first countertoxin directly into the wound. Ashenclaw's body convulsed, a low rumble of pain emanating from her chest. Oliver talked while he worked, mostly to calm his own nerves, but also because his mother had always said patients did better when someone spoke to them. I'm Oliver. I work at Redstone Station. I'm not very good at this, honestly. I'm scared most of the time, but you're not dying today. I won't allow it. The dragon's eye focused on him with something that might have been amusement. You are a strange creature, Oliver Reed. Your species should not exist. Too soft, too fragile, too emotional. Yeah, well, we're also too stubborn to know when to quit. The first countertoxin did nothing. Oliver watched his scanner in growing desperation as the poison continued spreading through Ashenclaw's system. The dark veins now covered half her chest, creeping toward her vital organs like roots seeking water. Her breathing had become shallow, irregular. Time was slipping away. The poison was designed by the Grask. Ashenclaw's mental voice was barely a whisper now. They have hunted my kind for generations. They know our weaknesses. Oliver tried the second countertoxin, then the third. His hands moved with practiced precision, even as his mind screamed that this was hopeless. He was a medical assistant, not a xenobiologist. He had basic training, basic equipment, and a patient whose biology he didn't understand facing a poison literally engineered to kill her species. Talk to me, Oliver said, checking her vital signs again. Stay conscious. I need you awake. Why? The question held genuine confusion. I am dying. You should save the egg and leave. At least one of us could survive. Because I'm not leaving either of you. Oliver pulled out a plasma cutter and began clearing debris from around Ashenclaw's body. Where's the egg exactly? Forward cargo bay. Silver container marked with my family's seal. A ripple of pain came through the link. Oliver, you do not understand. Even if you save me, the hunters will return. They track me here. They will come for my body, my egg, for anything they can harvest. Dravok tissue is worth millions on the black market. Oliver's blood went cold. How long? Hours. Perhaps less. Ashenclaw's eye dimmed slightly. This is why you must take the egg and go. One life saved is better than 2 lives lost. No, the word came out harder than Oliver intended. He was transported back 3 years, watching flames consume the residential sector, watching his mother disappear into the fire. Everyone had told him the same thing then. One life saved is better than 2 lives lost. Your mother made her choice. Be grateful you survived, but he wasn't grateful. He was haunted, and he'd be damned if he'd let someone else make that same sacrifice. Oliver contacted Redstone Station on the emergency channel. This is Reed. I need immediate medical evacuation to my coordinates. Critical patient with toxin exposure. Static crackled. Then Bradley's angry voice came through. Reed, where the hell are you? You stole station property and abandoned your post. Sir, I have a living patient who needs help. Requesting emergency assistance. You went into the scorched waste for that thing? Are you insane? Bradley's tone shifted from angry to incredulous. We're not risking lives for alien wildlife, Reed. You made your choice. Deal with the consequences. Sir, please, this conversation is over. When you get back, if you get back, you're fired. Bradley out. The channel went dead. Oliver stared at his communicator, feeling the weight of isolation settle over him. No help was coming. He was alone in a volcanic wasteland with a dying dragon and her unborn child, and somewhere out there, hunters were closing in. The smart thing would be to grab the egg and run. Save what he could and live with the guilt. His mother's face flashed through his mind. That final smile. She'd known she was going to die. She'd chosen it anyway. I need to remove the poison directly, Oliver said, his voice surprisingly steady. It's too deep for countertoxins to reach. I'll have to go in surgically. That will kill me faster. Ashenclaw's mental voice held resignation. The trauma alone, or it saves you. Oliver pulled out his surgical tools, hands steady despite his racing heart. I've seen the anatomy scans. Your cardiovascular system runs parallel to your respiratory ducts. If I can access the primary circulation chamber and flush the toxin directly, your immune system might have a fighting chance. You would need to cut through scales harder than starship armor. Even with a plasma cutter, the pain would be unbearable. I would lose consciousness. Then you stay conscious. Oliver positioned himself at the wound site. You're Dravok. Your species survived the ice wars, the plague centuries, and 1,000 years of hunting. You're strong enough to handle this. And if I am not? Oliver met her golden eye. Then I tried. That's more than anyone else was willing to do. The surgery was a nightmare. Oliver used the plasma cutter to widen the wound, the smell of burning scale filling his helmet. Ashenclaw's body convulsed with each cut, her mental screams of agony hammering into his consciousness. Sweat poured down his face, his hands shook, but he kept working. Through the telepathic link, Ashenclaw shared memories to stay conscious. Her hatching in a nest of volcanic stone, her mother teaching her to fly. The day the hunters came and her family scattered to the stars. Her escape, her hope, her fear that she was the last of her kind. Oliver found the circulation chamber, a massive organ pulsing weakly. The poison had concentrated here, thick and dark. He carefully inserted a drainage tube, manually pumping the toxin out while replacing it with clean solution from his medical kit. It was crude, dangerous, and shouldn't work by any medical standard, but it did. Slowly, impossibly, the dark veins began to recede. Ashenclaw's breathing steadied. Her vital signs stabilized. Oliver monitored everything with trembling hands, hardly daring to believe what he was seeing. You did it. Ashenclaw's voice was stronger now, filled with wonder. You actually did it. Oliver collapsed against her scaled side, exhaustion hitting him like a physical blow. Don't thank me yet. The hunters are still coming. Let them come. Ashenclaw's eye blazed with renewed fire. They have never faced a Dravok who had something worth protecting. They have never faced a human brave enough to stand beside her. Oliver managed a weak laugh. I'm not brave. I'm terrified. Is there a difference? Ashenclaw asked. You act despite your fear. That is the definition of courage. Before Oliver could respond, his scanner lit up. 3 ships entering the atmosphere, heading straight for their location. The hunters had arrived. 3 ships descended through the ash-filled sky like predatory birds. They were Grask vessels. Oliver recognized the design from station databases. Sleek, heavily armed, built for speed and violence. They circled the crater once before landing in a triangle formation around the crash site, cutting off any escape route. Oliver's scanner identified the occupants. 3 Grask mercenaries, each wearing environmental suits rated for extreme conditions. They carried heavy weapons, the kind designed to punch through reinforced hulls. The kind designed to kill dragons. "Can you fly?" Oliver asked Ashenclaw desperately. "Not yet. My wing is still torn. I need at least another hour to heal enough for flight." Her mental voice was steady, but Oliver felt her pain through their connection. "Oliver, you must hide. They will not see you as a threat if you stay out of sight." "I'm not hiding. You are 1 human with medical supplies against 3 trained killers. Then I better make it count." Oliver ran to the rover and started pulling out everything that could be used as a weapon or trap. Medical supplies could be repurposed. Fuel cells could explode. The plasma cutter was designed for debris, but metal was metal. He worked fast, his anxiety transforming into something else. Not courage exactly, but determination. He'd come too far to quit now. The first hunter stepped into the crater, weapon raised. He was massive, easily 7 feet tall, with gray scaled skin and black eyes that scanned the wreckage. His voice came through a speaker, harsh and grating. "Dravok, you will surrender your body for harvest. Comply, and we will make your death quick." Ashenclaw's response was a low growl that shook the ground. "I am Ashenclaw, daughter of Fireheart, last of the Dravok. I do not surrender." "Then you die slowly." The hunter raised his weapon. "Your choice." Oliver triggered the first trap. The fuel cell he'd buried near the crater entrance exploded, sending rock and ash into the air. The hunter stumbled back, his suit's shields flaring. Oliver used the distraction to move, positioning himself behind a piece of wreckage. "There's a human here," another hunter called out, his scanner tracking Oliver's heat signature. "Local colonist. Bounty on Xeno sympathizers is 5,000 credits. Kill it after we secure the Dravok." The leader ordered. Oliver's hands shook as he aimed the plasma cutter. He'd never hurt anyone in his life. His medical training was about saving people, not killing them. But these weren't people coming to negotiate. They were here to butcher Ashenclaw, to take her egg, to profit from genocide. His mother's voice echoed in his memory. Sometimes saving one life means standing against another. The second hunter moved toward Ashenclaw, weapon charging. Oliver jumped from cover and fired the plasma cutter, the beam catching the hunter's leg. The armor held, but the impact sent the Grask sprawling. Oliver didn't wait. He ran along the crater wall, using the terrain he'd memorized during the surgery. He triggered another trap, this one causing a gas vent to erupt directly under the third hunter. Toxic fumes engulfed the Grask. His suit's filters screamed warnings, forcing him to retreat or suffocate. The human knows the terrain, the leader snarled. Tactical adaptation. Spread out. But spreading out was exactly what Oliver wanted. Together, the 3 hunters were overwhelming. Separated, he had a chance. He led the first hunter deeper into the crater, toward an unstable section where magma flowed beneath a thin crust of cooled rock. The Grask followed, confident in his armor and weapons. Oliver ran across the crust, his lighter weight barely disturbing the surface. The hunter charged after him, heavy footsteps cracking the thin layer. The ground gave way with a sound like breaking glass. The hunter screamed as he fell into liquid fire, his shields failing instantly. The scream cut off within seconds. .2 left. Oliver's heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. He just killed someone. The realization threatened to paralyze him, but Ashenclaw's voice cut through his shock. "Oliver, behind you!" He dove aside as plasma fire scorched the ground where he'd been standing. The second hunter had flanked him, weapon tracking his movement. Oliver scrambled behind debris, but the cover wouldn't last. The hunter's weapon could punch through the wreckage easily, Then Ashenclaw moved. Despite her injuries, despite being weak from the poison, she unleashed a blast of superheated plasma from her mouth. The attack lit up the crater like a small sun. The second hunter's shields held for exactly 2 seconds before failing. His armor melted. His body followed. The leader of the hunters watched his team die with cold calculation. He raised his communicator. Base, this is Hunter Team 7. Dravok is combat capable. Requesting immediate backup. Full assault team. Through the static, a response came. Backup is 10 minutes out. 6 ships. Hold position. The leader looked at Ashenclaw, then at Oliver. 10 minutes. Can you kill me in 10 minutes, human? Can you stop 6 ships? This is over. You tried. You failed. Oliver stood on shaking legs, the plasma cutter heavy in his hands. The leader was right. They couldn't win. More hunters were coming, and even if they defeated this one, they'd be overwhelmed by numbers. This was it, the end of the line. But Oliver had one more trick that he activated his communicator, switching to all emergency frequencies. Every ship, every station, every colony within range would hear this. This is Oliver Reed, medical assistant from Redstone Station. I am in the scorched waste with a Dravok named Ashenclaw. She is injured, under attack, and carrying the last egg of her species. The Grask are here to harvest her for profit. They will succeed unless someone helps us. I know I'm nobody. I know this is insane. But if anyone out there believes that extinction is wrong, that profit doesn't justify genocide, then please, help us. The message broadcasted across every channel. Oliver had no idea if anyone would respond. The leader laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the crater. Pointless. No one will risk themselves for all ships. This is Redstone Station operations. A new voice cut through the static. We're detecting multiple vessels changing course toward Reed's coordinates. Oliver's heart leaped. Who? Everyone, Reed. Every damned person who heard you. The sky filled with ships. Not military vessels or professional rescuers, but civilian transports, cargo haulers, personal shuttles, and mining rigs. Dozens of them, dropping through the atmosphere in a chaotic swarm that made the Grask hunter backup pause in confusion. Oliver watched through his scanner in disbelief. Redstone Station personnel, independent traders, even a few colony ships from neighboring systems. They came armed with whatever they had, mining lasers and cargo clamps, and sheer, stubborn determination. What is this? The hunter leader's voice cracked with uncertainty. This is insane. They're civilians. They're humans. Ashenclaw said, her mental voice filled with wonder. And they are not alone. 3 sleek vessels broke through the crowd, moving with military precision. Centauri designs, Oliver recognized them. The lead ship opened communication. This is Dr. Yuri of the Centauri Medical Corps. Oliver Reed, you have made quite the mess. Despite the words, the alien physician's voice carried warmth. I knew your mother. She would be proud of the fool you become. Oliver's throat tightened. Dr. Yuri? You came. I came. Many came. Your message reached far, young Reed. Now, where is your patient? The Grass Hunter leader made his decision. He raised his weapon toward Ashenclaw, determined to complete his mission even if extraction was impossible. If he couldn't harvest her alive, a corpse would still fetch a price. Oliver moved without thinking. He threw himself between the weapon and Ashenclaw, the plasma cutter raised in a desperate attempt to deflect the shot. It was stupid, reckless, and completely pointless against military-grade firepower. The shot never came that Ashenclaw's wings swept forward, the torn membrane spreading wide despite the pain. She positioned herself over Oliver, shielding him with her massive body. The hunter's shot struck her scales and dissipated, the ancient armor of the Dravok holding strong. You will not touch him. Ashenclaw's voice thundered through both telepathy and sound, a roar that shook loose rocks from the crater walls. This human stood alone when his entire species abandoned him. He faced death to save a stranger. He has earned my protection, and I will burn this world to ash before I let you harm him. The hunter fired again. Ashenclaw breathed fire in response, a stream of plasma so intense it turned sand to glass. The hunter's shields failed, his weapon melted, and he ran for his ship with his suit smoking. The backup hunters arrived to find themselves surrounded. Civilian ships might not have been military vessels, but there were dozens of them. Mining lasers tracked the Grask ships. Cargo clamps locked onto their hulls. A particularly brave trader rammed his freighter into one hunter ship, sending both tumbling across the sky in a tangle of metal. All Grask vessels, this is Redstone Station security. You are in violation of interstellar protection laws. Dravok are a protected species under the Sentience Preservation Act. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. The hunters try to fight. They were outnumbered, outgunned by sheer volume, and facing opponents who had no intention of backing down. One by one, their ships were disabled or driven off. The leader's vessel took fire from 6 different sources before limping into the upper atmosphere and fleeing. Oliver collapsed to his knees, exhaustion and relief hitting him simultaneously. Around him, ships began landing. The first person to reach the crater floor was Dr. Yuri, all 4 arms carrying medical equipment. You performed surgery in a volcanic crater with field supplies, Yuri said, scanning Ashenclaw with professional interest. Either brilliant or insane. Perhaps both. I did what I could, Oliver said weakly. You did what no one else would. Yuri began setting up proper medical equipment. The poison extraction was crude but effective. The wound stabilization was adequate. Your patient will survive. Other people arrived. Station security, colonists, traders who'd responded to Oliver's call. They brought supplies, medical equipment, and engineering tools to help extract Ashenclaw safely. Someone found the egg in the wreckage, the silver container intact. They brought it to Ashenclaw, who cradled it gently with one massive claw. My daughter, Ashenclaw said softly, her mental voice filled with emotion. She will live. Because of you. Oliver touched the egg gently. It was warm, pulsing with life. Inside, something moved, something that would grow and fly and carry on the Dravok legacy. Something that existed because a terrified medical assistant had been too stubborn to abandon hope. What were you thinking? Bradley appeared, his expression somewhere between angry and awed. You stole equipment, abandoned your post, and nearly got yourself killed. I was thinking someone needed help, Oliver said simply. You violated a dozen regulations. You put yourself at absurd risk. Bradley paused, then sighed. You also saved the last Dravok and her child. The council is debating whether to fire you or give you a medal. I vote medal, Dr. Yuri said cheerfully. I also vote we hire him properly. Any physician who can perform emergency xenobiology surgery in these conditions is wasted as an assistant. Oliver looked around at the crowd of people who'd come to help. Humans, Centauri, even a few other species he didn't recognize. They'd all heard his message and decided that one life, one egg, one last chance at survival was worth the risk. His mother had taught him that courage meant acting despite fear. She'd shown him by example what it meant to stand up when others wouldn't. Oliver had spent 3 years thinking he'd failed her by being afraid, by freezing when she needed him most. But maybe he'd been wrong. Maybe courage wasn't about not being afraid. Maybe it was about being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. Maybe it was about believing that one person could make a difference, even when all logic said otherwise. I accept the position, Oliver said to Yuri. On one condition, Ashenclaw and her daughter get full protection. Medical care, security, whatever they need. Already arranged, Yuri said. The council has granted them sanctuary status. They are under Redstone Station protection now. Oliver looked up at Ashenclaw. Her golden eye met his, and through their telepathic link, he felt her gratitude, her respect, and something else. A bond. The kind that formed when 2 beings faced death together and survived. 6 weeks passed in a blur of recovery and adjustment. Redstone Station converted one of its large maintenance bays into a temporary habitat for Ashenclaw, complete with temperature controls and enough space for her to move comfortably. The egg remained with her constantly, carefully monitored by both human and Centauri medical staff. Oliver visited every day, often staying for hours. Through their telepathic connection, Ashenclaw shared stories of her species. The Dravok had once numbered in the thousands, spread across a dozen worlds. They'd been guardians, protectors of younger species, teachers of ancient wisdom. But their tissue held unique properties, valuable to corporations and criminals. The hunting had been systematic, efficient, and nearly complete. We believed we were invincible, Ashenclaw told him during one visit. We had survived the formation of stars, the death of worlds. We thought nothing could destroy us. But you survived, Oliver said, watching the egg pulse with life. She'll survive. Because of you. Ashenclaw's mental voice held warmth. Because one small, frightened human decided that extinction was unacceptable. The council hearing came on a cold morning. Oliver stood before the station leadership, facing questions about his actions. The charges were serious. Theft of station property, unauthorized use of equipment, abandonment of duty, reckless endangerment. Bradley had compiled a thorough report, documenting every regulation Oliver had violated. Mr. Reed, the council chair, said, "You put yourself at extreme risk. You could have died. The station could have lost valuable equipment. What do you have to say for yourself?" Oliver thought about his mother, about the moment she'd chosen to stay behind. He understood now that she hadn't been certain of success. She'd been terrified, probably, but she'd seen people who needed help, and everything else had become secondary. "I'd do it again," Oliver said simply. Every time, without hesitation. The council chair studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled. "The charges are dismissed. Furthermore, the council recognizes your actions as exemplary. You've been promoted to full physician status, with Dr. Yuri as your supervisor." Relief flooded through Oliver, but the chair wasn't finished. "However, we must address the larger situation. Ashenclaw and her daughter cannot stay here permanently. The Grask know where she is. Other hunters will come. Redstone Station lacks the resources to provide adequate long-term protection." Ashenclaw attended the hearing via hologram, her massive form projected into the chamber. "I understand. I will leave as soon as I am able to travel. I will not endanger this station further." "Where will you go?" Oliver asked. "There are rumors of sanctuary worlds in the Outer Rim, places where the old species still hide. I will search for them." Ashenclaw's voice held uncertainty. "Though the journey is dangerous, and I will be alone." Oliver made his decision in that moment. It wasn't a choice, really. It was a continuation of the choice he'd made 6 weeks ago in the scorched wastes. "You won't be alone. I'm coming with you." Silence filled the chamber. Dr. Yuri's 4 arms crossed in concern. "Oliver, that's a dangerous path. You would be leaving everything behind." "I know." Oliver looked at Ashenclaw's hologram. "But someone needs to be there when the egg hatches. Someone needs to help protect them while they search for sanctuary. I have medical skills. I understand human technology. I could be useful. You would give up your home, your career, your safety for us." Ashenclaw asked. "You needed help, and I helped. That hasn't changed." Oliver smiled. "Besides, you'll need a medic on your crew. Dragon or not, everyone needs medical care." The council debated for an hour before approving Oliver's request. There were conditions, of course. Regular check-ins, emergency protocols, and a promise that he would return if the situation became too dangerous. Oliver agreed to everything, his mind already focused on the journey ahead. The next weeks were preparation. Dr. Yuri helped Oliver gather medical supplies suitable for long-term space travel. Station engineers worked with Ashenclaw to repair her ship, incorporating human technology with Dravok design. The result was a hybrid vessel, smaller than her original ship, but faster and more versatile than on the day before departure. Oliver visited his mother's memorial. It was a simple plaque in the station's garden, listing her name and the date of her death. He'd avoided this place for 3 years, unable to face the guilt and grief. Now he stood before it with different eyes. His mother hadn't been fearless. She'd been afraid, probably terrified, but she'd acted anyway. She'd seen people who needed help and made her choice. Oliver had spent years thinking he'd failed her by being afraid. He understood now that fear wasn't the problem. Letting fear stop you is the problem. "I get it now, Mom," Oliver said quietly. Courage isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing the right thing anyway. I'm terrified of this journey, but I'm going anyway, because that's what you taught me. The wind rustled through the garden. Oliver liked to think it was her way of approving. The departure was surprisingly crowded. Station personnel, colonists, traders who'd helped during the rescue, all came to see them off. Dr. Yori gave Oliver a communicator specially tuned for long-range contact. Bradley, his former supervisor, shook his hand with grudging respect. "You're still reckless and too emotional," Bradley said. "But you've got guts, Reed. More than most." Oliver boarded the ship with his medical equipment and personal belongings. The interior was a mix of Dravok architecture and human technology, creating a space that felt both alien and comfortable. Ashenclaw waited in the pilot chamber, her eggs secured nearby in a specially designed incubator. "Ready?" she asked. Oliver strapped into the co-pilot seat. "No, but let's go anyway." The ship lifted off smoothly, rising through Redstone Station's atmosphere into the vast darkness of space. Behind them, the station grew smaller. Ahead lay unknown dangers, uncertain destinations, and the possibility of failure, but also the possibility of success. The possibility of finding sanctuary. The possibility of watching a dragon hatchling take its first breath. The possibility of continuing his mother's legacy in a way he'd never imagined. As they jumped to faster-than-light travel, Oliver felt the egg pulse through their telepathic connection. The hatchling was growing, getting stronger. Soon she would break free into a universe that had tried to destroy her species, but she wouldn't face it alone. She would have her mother, a guardian who'd survived extinction. And she would have Oliver, a medic's son who'd learned that bravery wasn't about being unafraid. It was about standing up when everything told you to run. It was about believing that one person could make a difference. Oliver looked at Ashenclaw and smiled. "So, any idea where we're actually going?" "Not really," Ashenclaw admitted, "but we will find it together." And somehow that was enough.